Yeah, I mean, next year's the year. Like, all kidding aside, isn't next year the year where they got to have a winning record at this point? Like, there was a lot of, hey, look what we did yesterday, and it was 6-10.
Yeah, if there were ever a year where you could have crept up on your division, would have been this year. But again, 3 new coaches in this division in the midst of a goddamn pandemic. That's we tend to lose sight of that, and they never really got to know their team. They never really got to go out and practice with their team like a normal year. And new players, new coaches, and all of that kind of stuff. It kind of stunts your growth as you get going.
Yeah, I don't know who you voted for Coach of the Year, but Kevin Stefanski's going to get some votes. And Kevin Stefanski, even though he's not going to coach in this game and everything kind of got screwed up with him in COVID now, but he also took over a team, first-time head coach, in the middle of a goddamn pandemic. So,
yes,
I mean, the fact that, everybody was in that situation had an even playing field, first-time head coaches.
Who had better rosters?
And as G pointed out, Doug Peterson, Super Bowl winning coach, what's his excuse?
Yeah, so I don't know. I
would say injuries.
Okay.
I thought injuries are never supposed to be an excuse. I love that.
No, let me ask you a question, Jerry. If,
if Rutgers lost, you'd like.
If Rutgers lost his 2 best players,
No. I'm on the side. No, I'm not. No, you're wrong, because I agree with you. If injuries aren't an excuse, then what the hell are we doing? Why sign any star players if injuries aren't an excuse?
I will say that I got a peek behind the curtain a little bit by doing the game this week between the Rams and the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And just listening to these coaches and these Zoom calls and listening to everything that they have to deal with. It was like playing whack-a-mole, like who's playing, who's not playing, who's on the list, who's coming off the list, how bad is this, who you bringing up from the taxi squad, what kind of roster maneuvering are you making to meet league requirements? I mean, it's crazy.
It is.
What every single one of these coaches has gone through this year. So I got to see it up close and personal. I was shocked at all the crap that went on and then goes on behind the scenes.
I'm with you, Boomer, and Al, too. They were 6-10, and listening to them, you would have thought they were 9-7 or 10-6 and got screwed out of the playoffs.
Well, they had a better second half of the year than they did the first half of the year, so they're still feeling reasonably decent, and they're coming off of a win against the Cowboys. They gave them a chance to get to the playoffs.
First win against the Cowboys in this century.
I know, but Jerry, I understand that your team was just as bad.
Terrible.
Beat, so
terrible.
And why were the Cowboys so bad?
They were awful. Coaching was awful. The players were awful. Wherever you want to point to, awful. Terrible.
Lost to Dak Prescott.
Yeah, but they weren't good before that. Their defense
was
with Dak
Prescott for 450 yards a game, though.
Perhaps they might have won a couple more games for sure, and they might have won the division at 8-8. Doesn't mean they were a good football team. They were historically bad defensively.
And what does that mean? Look at the stats that Deshaun Watson had. That team was horrendous, right?
I was going to say that both he and Deshaun Watson were on these record, setting paces, and it's unfortunate that Dak didn't see the season through, but. The other thing, too, I do know this. At least they had a competent backup. You may not be happy with what you saw, but Andy Dalton was there just to kind of hold the fort down, if you will, not be the difference maker.
And if he didn't miss games in the middle, again, maybe they win a couple more games rather than going to Ben DiNucci, although Gilbert did play well.
I tell you, I had a game with Strevelford and Wolford.
Oh, my God. Streveler.
Strevelford.
Might as well be Strevelerford.
Yeah, and by the way, I believe that injuries can be an explanation but not an excuse. I think there's a difference.
What's the difference?
The difference is when you're saying that I couldn't be good because of this, and you have to give me a break. That, to me, is an excuse.
Could you say that in relation to Sam Darnold? Could you say that in the 3 years that Sam Darnold's been here, that the Jets have been anything but consistent and it hasn't been a revolving door?
Sure, but I've also seen guys succeed in terrible situations. Like, for example, nobody thinks, and I just said what do the stats mean with Deshaun Watson, nobody thinks the Texans should move on from Deshaun Watson. But Deshaun Watson really wasn't playing with a lot around him at all this year, and he was able to look like a guy who was a star. Still, they lost a bunch of games, but he looked like he was a star. At what point did Sam Darnold ever look like that when he was healthy and playing? Never. So you can lose. You can have crap around you like Deshaun Watson had. I mean, he had Bill O'Brien basically pouring gasoline and lighting that franchise on fire, and he's left it in this pile of ash and still look like you can be a star. Sam Darnold never has.
I don't know. Bill O'Brien felt like he needed a starting left tackle. And he knew because he had to pay Deshaun Watson that he couldn't pay DeAndre Hopkins and Deshaun Watson at the same time. So he made a decision that he thought was going to be beneficial. And then when you do look at Deshaun Watson's numbers, and then you hear J.J. Watt apologize to Deshaun Watson that we just wasted one of your prime years of your career, then you realize that the problem resides on the one side of the ball down there, and that's defense.
I mean, Justin Herbert, that's one of the most attractive jobs out there because of Justin Herbert. That team stunk. Was bad. So the point is that
team didn't stink. They weren't bad. Their coach made a lot of confounding decisions that lost them games at the end.
The team
of games.
Was a bad team.
No, the decision-making was horrific. How many games did they lose in the last 2 minutes of the game?
But that's what bad teams do.
The same case for Bill O'Brien, too.
You know, the Jets and the Jaguars were bad teams. They had no chances.
Okay, but
the Chargers had a chance every week. Every week they had a chance.
All right. I mean, I think that what we have with Sam Darnold, what we have with Deshaun Watson, what we have with Justin Herbert are different. Do you think that Justin Herbert would look as horrendous as Sam Darnold did if he was a Jet quarterback? That's really the question.
Yes.
You do?
Probably be hurt.
You think that, so right now going forward, there's no difference in your mind about the career path of Sam Darnold and Justin Herbert?
Do you see the players that Justin Herbert's playing with on offense? Do you see his wide receivers? You see Austin
all right,
Eckler?
I'll give you all right. Deshaun Watson had nobody. Basically nobody.
No, they had guys. They had Will Fuller, who ended up getting suspended towards the end of the year. They had Brandon Cooks, who is a great. I would say he's
been on 50 teams in 50 years.
Well, he's more than competent football player. No, he's more than a competent football player.
He didn't have a lot around him. He didn't. So, I mean, you really think that Sam Darnold is, when you look at these franchises, it's the same?
I think Deshaun Watson camouflages a lot of problems for teams because he does more than just stand in the pocket and throw it. He'll extend a play and he'll take off running with the football, and he's about a handful of guys that can do that. There's no question about that. But it also goes to show you, no matter how good your quarterback is, if you don't have a stable franchise and you don't have consistent building around that player, they're not going to turn into Josh Allen. They're just going to basically wallow below 500.
For as good as he was, they were 4-12.
Yeah, and by the way, didn't Bill O'Brien take them to the playoffs 4 out of 5 years?
And they choked every single year.
But who choked?
They did. He did. They did.
When you say he, who are you talking about?
Like, how much does he pay you, Bill O'Brien? Because, like, you are dying on the Bill O'Brien hill for reasons nobody can understand. Like, he didn't do a good job there. Like, I understand you brought him to the playoffs, fine. They also had Deshaun Watson. You also had, at that point, a roster that should have been better than what it was. They were beating up on the Chiefs for whatever a half, and they got completely blown out after that. I mean, and then he ended up being named the general manager somehow, along with Jack Easterby, and they screwed the whole thing up. And now they're still screwing up after he left. So it's not on his completely at his doorstep what's gone on with the franchise, but a lot of it is, and he just didn't do a good job there in the end.
You know, the amazing thing is they just gave Nick Caserio a 6-year, $30 to $36 million contract to go down there and run that franchise. Now, if you look at the history of the New England Patriots and you look at some of their drafts, and they haven't gotten a quarterback right since Tom Brady, it goes to show you that, not all the answers, come from New England. And I think Deshaun Watson's upset by this hiring down there because it doesn't seem like they're going to interview Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, all the reports are that he is not on their list at all right now. I don't know. That could change, but it doesn't look like he's going to be considered for the Texans job, which is something that surprises, I know, both of us, because we talked about how we thought that was going to be a
perfect fit, especially with Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson and how close they are and how much they, I'm sure, communicate with each other, that would have been the perfect fit.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.